You know you're over it. You've processed it. You've moved on. Life looks different now. And yet, something still pulls. Like a door you've already closed, but your hand keeps going back to the handle. That's what I want to talk about today. We have this picture of what moving on is supposed to look like. You go through something hard, time passes, and then one day you wake up. And it's gone. Clean, done, finished. You're a new person. And for some things, maybe it works like that. But for most real things that actually shaped you, it doesn't. Moving on isn't just a moment. It's not a decision you make once and then you're free. It's more like a direction. You keep choosing it, the same direction again and again, sometimes every day. I think the reason so many people feel like they're failing at it is because they're measuring themselves against something that doesn't exist. This idea that once you're over something, you shouldn't feel any kind of weight from it anymore, and that just isn't true. Being over something and being fully released from it are two different things, and that gap between those two is what I want to try and make sense of. So why is letting go so difficult, even when part of you is clearly ready to? Well, the first thing is emotional attachment. And no, hold on, don't click off the video yet. I don't mean attachment in the romantic sense. I mean the way your nervous system gets wired to things, to people, to situations, to patterns. Your brain genuinely doesn't know the difference between something being good for you and something being familiar. Familiarity registers as safe. So even when something was bad for you, even when leaving it was the right call, some part of you will still reach for it because it knows, it subconsciously is used to that feeling because it feels like a solid ground. Which leads me on to the second thing, familiarity itself. There's comfort in what you know, even when you know what was hurting you. The version of your life you're trying to leave had a shape to it. It had a rhythm. Like I said earlier, it had a pattern. You knew how it felt to wake up inside of it. You were just so used to it. Every molecule of your body, from your brain to your feet, they were used, as silly as that sounds, they were used to being inside of that life, that pattern. And the new version, the better one, the one you're building, it doesn't quite have that shape yet. It's still being formed, and formlessness is uncomfortable. So the past can start to feel like relief, even when it wasn't actually good. It's a bit like going back to that old addiction that you just can't quite get yourself out of that hole. The third thing is having identity. Who were you during that time? Because sometimes we're not just holding on to a person or a habit. We're holding on to the version of ourselves that existed within that chapter. And that person felt real. They had a way of seeing things, a way of carrying themselves. And even if that version of you wasn't healthy, there was something known about them, something you understood. Letting them go means becoming someone you haven't fully met yet. And then the last thing is habit and routine. Having a routine. The body remembers things the mind has already moved on from. You can intellectually be done with something and still have your hands reach for it. Still having your thoughts drift toward it and at quiet moments. Not because you want it back, but because the pathway is still there. It takes time and repetition to wear a new one. I want to use a small example here from my own life, just to make this more concrete. When I was 16, I was in a relationship that ended, and it took me a long time to move on. Longer than it probably should have, looking back. At the time, it felt enormous, like something irreplaceable had been lost. But when I look at that now, from where I'm standing, I can see clearly that what I was holding on to wasn't the person. Like, really, it wasn't the person. It was the feeling of being within it, within the relationship, the familiarity of that chapter of my life, the version of myself who existed inside of it. I didn't know that then. I just knew it hurt, and it hurt way too much for me to let it go. I'm not in that place anymore, and I'm genuinely in a good place now. But that experience taught me something that I keep coming back to. Attachment can feel like love, even when it isn't. And just because something felt real doesn't mean you're supposed to hold on to it forever. I think a lot of us have something like that. Not necessarily a relationship. Maybe it's a time period, a group of people, a version of your life that just felt like home, a nostalgic sort of essence to a previous chapter in your life. And we keep the door cracked, not because we want to go back, but because we haven't quite said goodbye to who we were inside of it. Here's what I've been sitting with lately. Sometimes we don't miss the thing, we miss the feeling. We miss feeling young, or certain, or uncomplicated. We miss a time before we knew certain things about ourselves. And because the thing, the person, the habit, the situation was present during that feeling, our brain links the two together. So we reach for that thing, thinking it will bring back the feeling, but it won't. Have you ever opened an old Minecraft world from years and years ago just to feel the nostalgia for a brief 10 minutes? And then when the time comes to carry on expanding the world, you play it for a few minutes and then you log off, never to touch the game again for a few years. That's how going back to that previous situation would perhaps feel like in the moment. You're getting that nostalgia back briefly, but you're no longer living that life. You're not the same person within that scenario, within that chapter. And I think that's why letting go of old habits is so much harder than people give it credit for. It's not just the habit that you're releasing, it's the version of you that you built it to be. The logic that made sense of it all at the time, the identity that wrapped itself around it, that's a real loss. Even if you're losing what was bad for you, the act of changing is still a kind of grief in itself. You're leaving a version of yourself behind, and nobody really talks about that. The past also feels safer because it's known. You already live with it. There are no unknowns in it anymore. But the future, even if it's a better future, it is uncertain. And something in us would rather have a known difficulty than an unknown good. I don't think that makes us weak. I think it makes us human. What brings us all together, truly. It's a bit like feeling like you're stuck within a job because of the money. You know, you don't like the job, but the money is keeping you there. The money is the safe ground. If you leave this job, you're not going to be able to replace the money. And what happens next? You don't know. It's the unknown that has haunted us for millennia, you know? For me, a lot of this connects to the work that I'm doing right now on myself. I've been letting go of habits and that have had a real grip on me, gambling being one of them. And what I've noticed is that the hardest part isn't making the decision to stop. The decision is almost the easy bit. The hard part is all the space that gets left behind. Because a habit, even a destructive one, occupies time. It occupies headspace. It gives the day a kind of structure. And when you remove it, there's a gap where it used to be. And that gap feels so fucking uncomfortable. Not because you miss the habit, but because you haven't filled the space with anything new yet. And in that discomfort, the old version of you starts whispering. That's the moment that matters. That's where real change either holds or it doesn't. What I'm learning slowly is that becoming a better version of yourself isn't just about adding new things. It's about learning to sit with with the discomfort of who you're no longer choosing to be, long enough to grow into who you're becoming. That's not comfortable, but I don't think it's supposed to be. And if you think about that, you might understand what I mean on a bit of a deeper scale. There's a verse in the Bible that is stuck in my mind right now. And it goes like this: forgetting what is behind and straining towards what is ahead. And I used to read that as, just stop thinking about the past, move on, get over it. But I think it means something more honest than that. I think it means stop living in what's behind you. Stop letting it be the thing that defines your next step. You don't have to pretend it didn't happen. You don't have to erase it. But you don't have to let it steer either. For me, faith isn't a thing I figured out. It's more like a direction I keep trying to face. A trust that the discomfort of growing is pointing somewhere. That the person I'm becoming on the other side of letting go is worth the grief of the person I'm leaving behind. I can't prove that. I just keep choosing to believe it. If you're in the middle of something right now, trying to let go of a person, a habit, a version of yourself, and it's harder than you think it should be, I just want to say that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means it mattered. It means it had roots to the cause. And pulling something out by the roots is slow work. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you haven't grown. It means you're human and you're taking the work seriously enough to actually feel it instead of just performing it. That's not a failure. That's what it actually looks like. That's not Hollywood. It's not what you see on TV. This is the reality of facing a situation at face value. And I'm proud of you for taking that step. I'm still learning all of this. This isn't a video from someone who's figured it out. It's from someone who's still on that path, still choosing, still sitting with discomfort, still becoming something else. But one thing I've noticed is that the further you get from something, the more clearly you can see it. Things that felt permanent start to look like chapters. Things that felt defining start to look like lessons. Not because they weren't real, but because growth changes the lens. So wherever you are right now, keep going. Not because it gets easier immediately, but because you're building something, even when it doesn't feel like it. I'll see you in the next one.